Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. I'm very excited. We get to talk to our next guest, I think once a year, and I always get so excited to talk to her. And I only ask sparingly because she has one of the most successful YouTube channels out there on top of an amazing podcast called Serialously, and she is going out on tour. I'm sure all of these dates are sold out, but if they are not, you need to go see her live. Of course, we are coming off of the verdict in the Karen Read trial, but we're going to talk about a couple of other things as well. You know her from her popular YouTube channel, 10 to Life, the one, the only, Elise. Annie, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk all the things right now.
I mean, there is all the things, and we were talking beforehand, and I know you're watching Love Island, and you dabble in the Valley, and I always wonder if you watch the Valley with a keen eye on one day I'm going to have to do a big YouTube coverage of Jax Taylor in some way.
I mean, honestly, first of all, yes, but also I don't know if I ever ended up telling you this, but my new producer who works for me is Jess, Lala's former assistant. So every time
I'm so happy that Jess is working with you. A lot of people don't realize that she works with you now.
Yeah, she's amazing. And so it's so funny because when I watch The Valley or when I watch all these shows, I come in and I'm like, okay, I need you to tell me, are they really like this? Does this really go down this way? And she, of course, only has the nicest things to say about everybody. But I always try to go to her for the tea.
But I think she also probably tells you, this is pretty much how they are.
She spills some tea. Yeah, she does.
So you've had an insanely busy week, I would imagine, on top of an insanely busy couple of years, not only with every case that you cover, but the Karen Read trial, which has captured the attention of America in the way that Love Island USA captures America. And we got a not guilty verdict on 2 of the charges, and then she was guilty of the DUI. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. She was found not guilty of murder 2 and of manslaughter and of leaving the scene of an accident where somebody died. But she was found guilty of the OUI, which is basically a DUI. They just call it something different in Massachusetts.
I mean, can you speak to why this case did capture America's kind of imagination and in some ways heart? Because you look outside the courtroom and it's like Beatlemania, but it's Karen Read mania.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what made everybody start looking at it more closely is when I first covered this, it was years ago, and not a lot of people were, knew about it or were watching it or following it. But then Karen did the documentary Body in the Snow, and where this was after the first trial when it was a mistrial, and then she was already going to the retrial, and she gave these interviews in that documentary. And I think so many people, first of all, it went viral. And I think then a lot of people, their curiosity was piqued because there were the allegations of corruption, conspiracy, cover up, that there were these dirty cops who were trying to frame her. Here she was about to go on trial for the second time, but she was vocally speaking out, which we rarely see a defendant do. And so I think that everybody just got so invested and interested in it, and kind of crowdsourcing, trying to solve the case themselves too, to be like, was this really a frame job? This doesn't add up, because there are so many shady things when you look below the line involved in this case. And it went nuclear. It really did.
Yeah. I mean, I had the director on that did the Docuseries, which I thought was really well done. And I don't know what your take on that Docuseries was, but the footage they got with Karen and her defense team was just so, it was very personal in this interesting way that humanized. And sometimes I was like, I don't know if this is good for her or bad for her. I was worried about this, and to the inconsistencies, there are so many weird things that, not having followed this case from the beginning, that did stick out. People are throwing away cell phones. The dog is getting rehomed. And I don't know. And at the same time, I was looking at some news today where I think the Alberts and some family did interviews with ABC News saying, look, if this had to be a conspiracy, we would have had to have 40 or 50 people working on this. And my thing is these people seem stupid. How would they be able to do sorry to offend any officers out there, but 40 to 50 people to have this conspiracy? Where do you land on all this stuff? Because it is odd, all of these details. But then at the same time, it's like when people said Scandival was fake. You're like, no, these people couldn't fake this. They can't act that well.
So, in the beginning, when I first covered the case, gosh, I think it was back in 2023. And I was very much of the mentality before I knew all of the like little nuances and red flags. I was like, okay, well, at face value, it seems like she was wasted. She probably hit him,
Yeah.
didn't know, she was blacked out and went home. But then when I started really researching it and when I found out about the basement flooring being completely jackhammered out and redone when they had just redone it 2 years prior, then they sold the home right after John O'Keefe was found. Then Chloe, the German Shepherd, not only
Wait, so
being rehomed,
they don't even live at that home anymore.
no, they sold it. Then they
I didn't know
rehomed.
about the floor. I didn't the flooring. They
Oh,
brought up
there
the
is
flooring again.
so much. There is so much. It's like there's the flooring. We know that he had this lateral laceration on the back of his head, which the Commonwealth was trying to argue that that was from falling backward outside and that the
Yeah.
frozen ground is what caused that. However, there was a weight rack and a bench and all of these things in the basement and the garage. And so there were all of these inconsistencies. Not only was the dog rehomed, but then we find out even on cross-examination that when they ended up going into 34 Fairview that morning, there was no dog in sight. Nobody remembers seeing the dog. There was also the snowplow driver who saw a Ford Edge parked out front of the house in the middle of the night when they were plowing the streets, which I'm not going to name the family member's name, but it's a family member of the Alberts who own a Ford Edge. So there was suspicion that he then took the dog away. Like there's just so much. So it's like you kind of have to throw out any sort of like basic logic of, oh, it's probably Occam's razor. She hit him, because then all of these inconsistencies come out.
Yeah.
Also, to your point, the cell phone, not only did he throw away his cell phone and destroy it, but he was instructed to turn his cell phone over the very next day and instead removed the SIM card, broke it, went to the military base, put
Yeah.
it in 2 different dumpsters. It's like if you're innocent and you're not hiding anything, you sure are doing a great job making yourself look shady as hell, you know?
Well, I mean, and then it's interesting how, your mind, I remember hearing that piece of information. And then I was like, well, maybe he was just involved in some other shady activity that would actually pop up on his phone. And I think it's interesting the lengths that we will go to be like, no, okay, if that doesn't fit, maybe this is why. But did they ever have a solid reason of why he dumped this phone in 2 separate places near a military base?
No, I think his reasoning was just, yeah, he had sensitive information. I think there might have even been something about how he had done something undercover at one point, so there was privileged information. But again, that's not the way you destroy it, especially when you're ordered to turn your phone over. And there were just so many other things that rolled into it as well. The butt dials, of course, the deleted search history, deleted call history. And so that's in my mind when I really started looking at it and being like, okay, something's not right here, which this was like a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting in touch with some of Karen's family members, and that's why I flew out and I attended the trial
I saw,
in person.
I saw a picture with you and Karen Reed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met
I
her defense team, her parents, her cousin. I mean, which I have to just say, her parents are like some of the nicest, warmest human beings on the planet. They just like welcome you with open arms. But yeah, I attended in person, and hearing some of the things that they all had to say and some of the conversations that were happening outside of the courtroom about things that were inadmissible, but other issues to where they firmly believe that Karen was framed. It makes you think something's not right here with the Commonwealth. There's got to be some sort of corruption going on.
When you go into these situations where you're like boots on the ground and you're dealing with people that you have talked about, how do you handle that? Like, is there a code of, I mean, I know there's old school journalism ethics, but you started out on YouTube and, you built this platform and it's huge. Like, are there certain things or like when you go into those, like boundaries that you will not cross or things that you're looking for? Like, how do you approach those situations where you get to potentially ask questions that you've wanted to know? And where is your bullshit meter, and does it go off when you're having these in-depth conversations, not only with Karen Reed, but other people that you've spoken with?
Of course, it's tough, right? Because you definitely want to be as unbiased as possible. And so before I even flew out there, one of the conversations that I had with her family member was look, here's where I currently stand on the case. I'm very neutral. I am leaning towards, I think, not that there necessarily is a frame job, but that there certainly is too much reasonable doubt to convict her. But that being said, my plan when I go there, just because I'm going with you and going with your family, isn't that I'm going to free Karen Reed. She was framed, all of these things. Like, I'm going to report on it in a neutral way. And if my opinion sways one way or the other, whether it's in her favor or the opposite, I am going to share that opinion. And the only reason why I opted to go with her family and sit on the defensive side rather than go with regular media, I had applied for media. We were hounding the court relentlessly, but because it was such a high profile case, they were only allowing 10 media seats, and they did a lottery each week where they would choose the 10 seats who would have it for the week. And there's even some argument that that lottery system was rigged based on who continuously was chosen over and over. But there was no way I was going to get in that courtroom rather than having this private invitation. So I accepted it and then was fully transparent with my plans of how I was going to approach the situation and how I was going to cover it. And, in regards to your question about the bullshit meter, of course, there's certain things where it's like, tell me whatever you want to say, all the things that you think are wrong. And I'm going to digest it. I'm going to believe what I believe and then relay the information accordingly. It's not like I'm going to be a mouthpiece for whatever you're saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good to be able to keep your objectivity in any of those situations. But I imagine for you, when did you start this channel initially?
2020.
Only 2020? I always forget that but like, just think back to 2019 or the pandemic, and now you're covering these cases to such a degree that you are actually in the courtroom. And I know it's such a dark subject matter, and I do not want to skip past, the memorial of John O'Keefe at all, who this is all based around. But there is this feeling of like, it's got to be so bizarre for you. Or do you even feel that at all? Is it just like, I don't even look back and I just keep going?
It definitely feels bizarre and surreal because whole reason I started the channel and the podcast is because I've always been fascinated with true crime, and I've been a consumer of true crime, and I personally enjoy more of like the problem solving element and the strategic thinking involved in it. So that's why I started it, but I never in a million years thought that I would be attending some of these hearings or trials in person, that I would be talking to defendants, to victims families. And I'm going to be in the Idaho trial there for the 3 months that's scheduled to go on too. And that definitely was not on my bingo card when I started this whole thing. So it definitely is surreal, but it also gives you more of just an inside perspective, I think, being able to be more boots on the ground.
What are the biggest fallacies that you've discovered since you started covering this, of the way you thought things work as opposed to how they actually work?
I guess I always assumed that things would be more clean cut and quick, whether it was getting a conviction, identifying a perpetrator, getting justice. And now that I've been more involved in it and I've spoken with so many survivors and victims' families, I've just realized that the pursuit of justice looks different for everyone, right? It's like sometimes they get the perpetrator, sometimes they don't. But then even once you do, what happens in the court system? What happens with true accountability? And it's just a very difficult road and a very messy road.
Well, that's it exactly. Whether it be like when I pay attention to the Diddy trial or even the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, you really sense what a game it is and how lawyers really, I mean, like that's where a good lawyer is gonna, it's like this, it's like machismo in a sense, like where they're like trying to like outswing big dicks and like make these legal moves. And I mean, watching that docu-series about Karen Reed, Karen's, head lawyer, really, I mean, incredible. You can just see he's almost like an athlete when he's like preparing the final statements of the first trial and they're timing them. And I was just like, this is so bizarre because at the end of the day, this decides this woman's guilt or innocence, and she could go to prison for this based on your performance.
Absolutely. It all comes down to strategy. What evidence do you want in? How are you going to reframe this for the jury? I think a great example of that too is now in this second trial for Karen, we saw that the Commonwealth didn't call Michael Proctor, the lead investigator. They didn't call Brian Higgins. They didn't call some of the Alberts. And so I think
because they know they're tainted, right?
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
the thought would be, oh, well, the defense will call them. Absolutely. They're going to bring them in because the jury needs to hear what they've done and how this former state trooper is now disgraced. But there's strategy behind that. The defense wasn't going to bring them in because it would have allowed an opportunity, just even a tiny window open for them to be on the stand and elicit some type of sympathy or change the narrative at all. So instead, they brought in other people who would bring those text messages in, bring those statements in. So it's almost like you're getting the testimony and the information about them by proxy without having the risk of putting them on the stand and them flipping the script in a way that is out of your control.
Okay, folks, say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages because Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. I just switched to Mint Mobile and I am already saving $120, and it is the same quality of service, if not better. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number. You can even switch over your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. So ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of unlimited service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. I didn't stumble over my words. $15 a month. So this year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/sobad. That's mintmobile.com/sobad. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on the unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Okay, folks, if you've been listening to the show, you know I've been on a health journey this last couple of months. And part of that is because summer is here. You got more light. You got more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And you have to wear summer clothes. You're kind of showing off your goods in a sense. And the number one thing that you also don't want to be doing this summer is spending hours cooking inside. And that is where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-created, chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. If you know me, I like to do things fast. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat. It is perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your summer gains and goals. I am on the website right now, and you can choose from options that work for anybody, but especially work for me. There's Calorie Smart, there's Protein Plus, there's Keto, there's like 4 other different options that if you are trying to live a healthier lifestyle, it is perfect for. Factor powers your day sun up to sundown with nutritious breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor has your whole day covered. So enjoy more this summer. Get Factor if you want all the flavor and none of the fuss. I just ordered my box and I ordered a high protein meal, a carb conscious meal, a GLP-1 balance, even though I'm not on a GLP-1, but it's still good food. And they even have fiber filled. I am so excited to get my shipment because I'm just looking to eat healthy and, not have to do the fuss of actually cooking this food. I'm not a good chef. So I'm using this and so should you. Get started at factormeals.com/sobad50 off and use code SOBAD50 off. That's SOBAD 50. That's sorry. SOBAD50. That's SOBO sorry, SOBAD 50OFF to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code SOBAD50 off at factormeals.com/SOBAD50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/SOBAD50 off. I will say, taking away the horror of this actual crime, that's the thing that fascinates me is the machinations, like the ins and outs of having those discussions of, well, if they do bring him on, this actually elicits this emotional response and really thinking it out 10 steps ahead of any possible outcome. Now, to Mr. Proctor, the disgraced trooper, he was on ABC News, their special last night. And, just to remind the audience, even though I'm sure you're way more up on this than I am, is that he had really kind of texted some disgusting messages that to me are very like, James Kennedy guys night about like filthy thing of I found no nudes, horrible ass, hot face, but like some really gross things that, weren't surprising to me because I think that's how a lot of men speak in group texts, but it really hurt the prosecution's case because it was like, oh, if this is how they're handling the case with such disregard and such flippancy that I can't see. I mean, speak to how damaging those texts were.
I think it not only shows the level of unprofessionalism, but it shows that he had an axe to grind with her very early on. We're going to pin it on the girl. She better not fight back, calling her a see you next Tuesday, all of these things. And what I found so interesting is in his 2020, he tries to justify them or explain them away, saying, well, no, my opinions of her became that as time went on. No, you were sending those text messages within hours and days after John O'Keefe was found.
And he was sending them to friends that weren't even on the police force.
Exactly. So I personally believe, of course, that interview was recorded ahead of time. I think he recorded it and went in there thinking he's going to look like he's going to save face. It's going to be great because I think he thought that she was going to get a guilty verdict. I don't think he would have done that interview had he known that it was going to be not guilty and that so many people were side-eyeing him and that the jury wasn't even going to believe that she was responsible. So I think it ended up kind of, not going down the way he was probably expecting it to.
You couldn't pay me to be a juror on any of these high profile cases. I mean,
oh my God, you could pay me. You could make me do it for free, but nobody will ever have me. They'd be like, nope, you can't be anywhere near this.
We just get you on all of the big like I mean, if I was like, defending myself, I'd shit myself. I'd be like, no, not her, anybody but her.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So we've gotten this not guilty, and then guilty on the OUI. But where do we go from here? Because if she didn't do it, are we still trying to find out who did do it? And if you tell me all of this information, and I had not realized the floors were torn up a second time. I knew about the dog. I knew about rehoming the dog, which I still question, well, then why can't they go find the dog at the rehome place and test the dog there? I would figure this puts a huge spotlight on the Alberts and all of the people there that night. Why aren't we going further with that? Is there a reason besides just the normal reason of like, the cops, we're protecting them?
I think that at this point, because they have now tried this woman twice and failed and have spent millions of dollars for essentially a misdemeanor DUI charge, I don't think that they're going to be pouring any more money into this investigation. I think they're going to dig their heels in and say, we know who did it, but she was found not guilty. We're not investigating further. And I just don't think that they would continue to pull resources. And I think that they are just going to lean on the fact that they already know. But there's still civil suits, of course. There's the possibility that Karen may try to recoup some of the financial loss that she had when for going through this. So I don't think that it's nearly over yet, but in terms of the investigation and getting justice for John O'Keefe, I unfortunately do think that has probably reached the end of the road, which is really what sucks in all of this. Because, of course, like you said earlier, this is polarizing, yes, but the main root of this case isn't the theatrics and the drama behind it. It's that a man lost his life and everybody is wanting justice for him, and seeing his family in the courtroom being so emotional, having to walk out when certain images are shown. It's like, these are real people who lost someone that they love so much. So where is that justice for him? And I can't imagine, even if the FBI starts getting involved more, I can't imagine that they're going to continue down that road investigating, not because it's the blue wall or anything like that, but more so just because so many resources and so much time has already been spent and they got it wrong legally.
Why was the FBI involved in the first place? Because but they never fully said why they were involved, right?
They were looking into certain things with how the investigation was handled. They were tapping into a little bit of why ARCA was involved and the Reconstructionists, but not in a huge investigative way. It was mainly the state trooper and lead investigator Proctor who was running the investigation.
Now, in any of your research or talking about this or talking with others, Has anybody speculated on what actually happened? Did they drag him to the basement? Why did, if some theories are to be believed, why did they beat him and kill him? Or like, what is some of the working theories of if Karen didn't hit him with this car, what did happen?
So the theory is that something happened to him inside that house, whether it was the garage, the basement, wherever, and that it was an altercation either with Brian Higgins or with Brian Albert and Colin Albert. And there's a couple theories as to why. One of them being we saw the footage from the waterfall where they really enhanced the footage, and it shows that Brian Higgins seems a bit aggressive. He's making hand motions towards John O'Keefe while he's at the bar. The Alberts are kind of trying to calm him down a little bit, and then they leave. So we know Brian Higgins had been texting with Karen. She ghosted him. So some people suggest that's what caused some sort of altercation at the house.
And some people were saying that's why Karen was nervous to go inside the house because he was in there and there had been this flirtation over text message.
Exactly. Another theory with Colin Albert involved is that, and this is just a theory, so, allegedly, but there have been rumors that he deals drugs within
I saw that on TikTok.
Canton, and that John became aware of it, and that that Colin didn't know he was coming to the house that night. He was still there, that an altercation ensued at that point, and that there, again, just some sort of physical altercation happening on the property at 34 Fairview. Now, whether he took that fatal blow to the back of the head in the basement, in the house, or wherever, unclear, or if he fell, maybe, and then maybe he stumbled out. Because I also don't believe that if these cops were covering up a murder, I don't necessarily think they would just dump him on the front lawn. I think they'd probably go to more lengths to cover things up or to conceal a body. So it could be that he was hit and then he stumbled out and fell by the flagpole. Maybe he was going to call Karen to pick him up. Maybe he thought she was still parked there. Maybe he was going to call an Uber. Who knows, right? But the theory is that something happened inside that house. And it's interesting because although this whole third party defendant didn't get introduced in a major way during the retrial, I have heard a couple of jurors now who have spoken out since the verdict where they've been asked point blank, well, what do you think happened if you don't think Karen hit him? And they say, we think something happened inside that house. And so if they're able to come to that conclusion without knowing all this outside noise that we all know because it hasn't been entered in at trial, I just feel like that's pretty telling if everybody's coming to that same conclusion, even with limited information.
Because they're saying he never actually even went into the house, the Alberts, and no, we never saw him. We never saw him in the house. The other question I had, and I don't know if you can answer, is that Karen dropped John off, right? Allegedly. And then she went home, and then, hours later, she's calling him, where the F are you? She goes in a car and tries to find him with a friend, and da-da-da. Why did she leave in the first place? If she so worried about where he was.
So she had dropped him off, and the plan was that he was going to go inside to just make sure that it was okay that they, even though they were invited, that they go, because it wasn't the McCabe's house. That's who had invited them over. It was the Alberts' house. So she was going to wait. According to Karen, she's waiting there. John's not coming out. She's getting increasingly frustrated. So then she just is like, fuck this. I'm leaving. I'm going back to the house. Find your own way home, basically. Then once she gets home, some time passes. And that's when she's like, well, where are you? And why aren't you answering your phone? And she starts drunk dialing like so many of us have done before and leaving these just scathing messages for him where she's like calling him a pervert, saying, where the hell are you? Yeah. No, I mean, I am guilty. In my past, when I've had toxic relationships, 2 a.m. rolls around and I was at the bar all night. That person, nobody's phone is safe,
Yeah.
So you can hear her, of course hear her anger in these calls as well, which I think that also was a huge illustration, in my opinion, of why this could not have been murder too, not intentionally done, because you hear in her voice, I don't think that's the voice of somebody who's trying to cover her tracks and knows that she just hit him and left him for dead. That's somebody who is pissed off. Why aren't you home? It's the middle of the night. She already thought that he was either cheating on her or emotionally detached from the relationship because they had been texting all day earlier that day leading up to them going to the bar, of her basically begging him, like, can you just promise me you're still in this relationship? Do you still care? Are you over it? Just looking for some sort of validation. So I think that just kind of was also in the corner of her mind when he wasn't returning.
Which is then hard in the case because you hear all of this stuff and you're like, oh, a woman seeking vengeance over a man that is not fully into her. You know, it's like one of those other kind of little wrinkles to this case. Now, the public or, so many people, she, like I said earlier, it's like Karen Mania. She has such a fandom. And what do you attribute that to? Because, I mean, do you think it's just the fact that when we see somebody that we know has been wronged, we kind of fight for that person? Like, how do you speak to this?
I think so, because I think we've seen a huge uptick over the last 5 years, ever since the big push with the Me Too movement, where it's like these people in powerful positions are using it to their advantage. They're, hurting innocent people. They're taking advantage of them. And so I think we've been seeing that on display more and more, whether every situation is credible or not, obviously not. And everybody can have their own opinions because some people do exploit the situation. I understand that. But I think that people saw that there was corruption and these people in power who were trying to potentially frame this innocent woman. And a lot of the people within Canton have firsthand knowledge of there being corruption and misdoings by the police force. So what started to kind of just fester under the surface, I think it just got bigger and bigger. And then everybody was like, fuck these people. Like, what's going on here? You don't have enough evidence. You're either framing her or there's definitely not enough to charge her. And it just became this monster.
Do you ever regret not having your name be Turtle Girl? So you guys, if you haven't followed this case, there's a what do you call him? A vlogger, Turtle
He's a journalist.
Boy,
a journalist,
award-winning journalist. But he goes by the name of Turtle Boy. And I was watching a couple of his videos or clips yesterday where he's like on to the next thing. He's like, we are going to take down the Alberts and figure out all of this stuff. And I just thought, he has led the charge from the beginning. But I always just find it interesting. It's like, New Kids on the Block. I was like, how's that name going to like sit 40 years from now when you're like old men? And like Turtle Boy, I wonder if he ever regrets Turtle Boy as a moniker.
Well, so I will say this just yesterday, and I don't know the exact details, so please don't quote me on it, anybody, but I saw that the reason he came up with that name is because there's some sort of statue called that in Boston, or there's something like that, and he's from Boston, and like there's some sort of meaning. It's not some just like random name, I guess, that he came up with, like a pseudonym or whatever. But Aiden, I had a conversation with him when I was there attending the trial, and he has been the one who really spearheaded this from the very beginning, trying to make people aware of what was going on, so much so that he caught charges of his own with witness intimidation, all sorts of things. So he's going to be going on trial for something, and he's been exonerated of a few of them, but he still is in some legal hot water too. But that's how passionately he was fighting for this.
So, in Karen, so Karen really, when she spoke to, all of the people out there supporting her yesterday, this really did help move the needle and move this case forward in so many ways. And it just also shows how many people don't have that. And it's always interesting what light gets shined on what case. Finally, about the Karen Read, where does she go from here? Because in my mind, studying pop culture, I go, you got a book. You might have a reality show because Lifetime has like Gypsy Rose right now. You got the Baldwins. You got a lot of like high profile cases going into that pipeline of reality shows. Where do you think Karen Read goes from here? And also, is she dating?
I don't believe she's dating. I think she's been way too busy and consumed with everything the past 3 years to be dating. But I would imagine 1000% most likely a book deal, maybe her own series. I've also heard, and I don't know how accurate it is, I've heard rumblings from certain publicists out there that they are planning to do a Real Housewives Boston and that they have tapped Karen. I don't know how true that is. I mean, it would be epic. I know.
Annie, sorry, I just want to make sure we clip this
about
part.
Breaking news, everyone.
I'm sorry to laugh, but I did not think that's what you were about to say. So
could you imagine if that's the announcement at BravoCon this year? If they're like, Karen Read is joining Real Housewives of Boston. No, I swear to God, I've heard this from some publicists out there.
I'm already thinking of her like taglines of like,
oh my God.
I got off once and I'm going to keep getting off. I don't know what the tagline would be, but oh my God. I mean,
I know.
as a Housewives and Bravo fan, is that flying too close to the sun for like? I mean, that's so intense to think about, and because how
It
would
is. It is because
but
you're platforming someone who was accused of murder, but at the same time, she was also found not guilty. And not that it's the same level, but we've also had Jen Shaw, Teresa. We
so
know that
true.
people are interested in watching someone like rebuild after that. And
It's so
Karen is
true.
incredibly intelligent and smart. She, managed financial assets for Fidelity. She was a professor. So, like, whatever she does next, I think will be a very smart and strategic move.
Well, I think that's what
Maybe it's
fascinates
not
me too.
Housewives.
No, I mean, but my God, that would be. I mean, I gotta sit on that a little bit. But what I also think studying these kind of things, I get fascinated because I'm like, are we at a point where we can do Dancing with the Stars? Because we had Anna Delvey. Are we like? I mean, how? I hope she has a team around her that lets her do things of a certain caliber. Like, I don't want to see her on House of Villains. I don't want to see her go
No,
down that reality. Like, I don't want to see her on The Traitors. I want to,
no.
like, I don't want to make a mockery of any of kind of the celebrity that she now has. But I do understand that she does have to make money, and there are a lot of people that are going to be offering her so many things right now. And I'm so curious about how that process goes.
She strikes me as somebody who I don't want to say wouldn't take like bottom of the barrel things because none of those are bottom of the barrel, but like I think she sees herself as more of a serious person. So I would
Yeah.
imagine a book deal. Maybe she'll even get into law. Who knows? She is incredibly smart and maybe she wants to fix the system that she believes wronged her so badly for so many years. And so it'll be interesting to see where she is. She's on probation for a year, so I don't believe she's going to be leaving Massachusetts at all, but will she also relocate eventually? Who knows?
Well, what if she starts a YouTube channel and takes you on head to head? What are you going to do?
Hey, come on. Let's do it. Let's do it. 20 to life. Let's do it.
She's 21 to life. She's like a direct competitor. Wait, are you able to go a couple minutes after one?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Before we get to Brian Coberger, I just wanted to also remind people. So you're going out on tour. How does this work? Because I know you've already done dates last year. And what can we expect when we come to see a live show of yours?
That's a good question. So a lot of people, I think, have a misconception of like, okay, true crime is going on a tour. Like, are you glamorizing it? But that's not at all what it is. So what we do is we choose an exclusive case, and it's basically just a live episode. And there's some other things that are looped into it, like question segments, surprise guests, experts weighing in. But for this time around, since it is a bigger tour than we've done in the past, we chose the case that we want to cover. We have been working with the family directly, building this out. We brought a documentary crew to their location out of state, filmed so many interviews, got so much information, did what we always do for an episode when we build it, file the FOIA requests, get all of the CCTV footage, the police reports, everything. So when you go to these shows, it is essentially a live episode, but it's presented in a very different format than how you would hear on the podcast or watch on YouTube. And then with that, once we present the case, we give, of course, a call to action. We'll do some, question segments, special experts, surprise guests, all in the true crime circuit, and just, get to meet face to face and talk about a lot of these cases, not just through the screen anymore.
But you're also, you're also such a fun person, like, and we've laughed together about reality shows and stuff. Are these somber? I mean, it's not obviously an uproarious night filled with laughter, but are there moments? I mean, obviously you're connecting with this audience and they're there because they're passionate, not just fans of yours, but really study these cases like you do. What is the overall mood at these events?
There definitely are more lighthearted moments throughout. Of course, there is going to be that somber element when you're hearing about what some of these victims or survivors went through. But I think what I will say is the community that we've fostered through the YouTube channel and the podcast is it feels like we're all friends. And whenever I deliver a case, I try to just humanize it and speak the way I'm speaking to my sister or to my friend. So there are these lighthearted moments too, where I'll say things off the cuff, or we'll all laugh together about something one of these moron perpetrators did, whether it's a stupid Google search that ended up getting them caught or whatever it is. So it's enjoyable, and you're around like-minded people where there's just like a feeling of friendship and community, if that makes sense, which I know sounds so cliche and cheesy.
No. Well, I will say, and especially with artists like you, is that like, you can really tell that you have built up this passionate community, and I think that's what's so exciting. Like, and I think we've done it here to a much smaller degree, but I think that's so great when you're able to actually work towards that community even more by doing live events. And I mean, just hearing all of the things like we had to file this for the CCTV, I was like, dude, I had to file a thing with my bathroom today. Like, how you guys are like working on such a different level, which I think I said last time. I'm like, when's the TV show? And then I think we said like, you already have a TV show. And by the way, your TV show on YouTube gets better ratings than actual TV shows.
Thank you. Thank you. There are some bigger projects in the works. I'll just
I'm sure. I'm sure there are. But I feel like I mean, I'm gonna have to rob a bank or something so you can cover me and I can get some notoriety. That would be amazing. I would be really.
Don't do that.
Don't count. No, please.
Or split the profits with me.
That's a dark movie. Is like doing some kind of crime so you can work in conjunction with a YouTuber to like get your profile up.
Imagine.
I can't. Well, in 2025, I can't imagine. Brian Coberger, the Idaho murder trial, that starts this summer, correct?
It's supposed to start in August. However, they just had a hearing a couple of days ago where the defense is saying they need more time, that there's been new evidence introduced, that they just simply haven't had enough time to go through everything. However, there hasn't been a ruling as of today whether the judge is going to push the trial out. The judge has said to anticipate as though it is happening as scheduled. So jury selection will begin the end of July and the trial will officially begin with opening statements. It's believed the first week of August.
And you're going to be there for the opening, or are you just there sometime in the trial?
I rented a house for 3 months. I'm going to be
You're going to be there.
I'll be going in and out because I have 2 kids at home. I obviously need to be here for, but it'll either be me, a team member. We're all going to be going in and out.
Hey, I'm your new team member. You send me.
Perfect.
You send Ryan Bailey for one of those days. I will come. We'll do
done.
I'll try to bring a light. No, anyways, but I followed this case from the very beginning. I read that Howard Blum book and I watched that recent Dateline episode. And Annie, is it bad where I'm like, this guy flippin' did it? Period.
No.
Like, why are we wasting all of these years? Why are we wasting? Like, I'm sorry. It's once again, we're like bending ourselves into pretzels to be like, maybe he didn't. No, he did. Like, I don't know any other piece of evidence where I go, oh, that actually makes me think and ponder. And then we just had I don't know if this is true or not. I read that there was a DoorDash driver that got arrested for DUI and then goes, I actually was the DoorDash driver that was there at that house last, that many years ago delivering the food. And I did see the defense. Brian Coberger.
I'm with you. I completely agree. And I have the sentiment that you are cloaked in innocence until you're proven guilty. However, there are certain cases where I do judge right off the bat and say, I think this person's guilty based on what I know and the evidence. And that's just my opinion. And Brian Coberger is one of them. There is this whole camp out there who, I don't know if they call themselves this or if somebody has dubbed them this, but the pro-burgers, where they believe he's innocent. They believe he is being framed and they think that this is like him being railroaded. I disagree. I think, yes, maybe you could explain away the touch DNA somehow. Maybe. I don't think so. But even
on the button of the sheath, the sheath, the knife, yeah.
But even given all of the circumstantial evidence, to me, that paints a pretty damning picture. I mean, what innocent person do you know is sitting in the middle of the night holding a flashlight, wearing latex gloves, and dividing their trash into Ziploc baggies and tossing them in their neighbor's trash can? What other person do you know who studied criminology and put out literal surveys to serial killers who have been convicted asking, how'd you leave the scene? How'd you do this? I don't know if you've gone down the rabbit hole of the Papa Rogers account on Facebook.
Yes.
But where it's like he's saying things and commenting things in this Facebook group before the police ever released that information about a sheath being left behind, things like that.
And the AI photo that was used is wild as well. Yeah.
Yep. And I could talk about this for hours, but Papa Rogers, I believe, is an ode to Elliot Rodger, who is the notorious incel, who so many people look up to. And I believe Brian is an incel, which is it stands for involuntarily celibate.
100%.
And So there's so many connections, and I'm doing a deep dive episode that's going to release the first week of
Oh,
July on all of this, because there's a new docuseries coming out on Prime on July 11th, which I luckily, knock on wood, got the screeners for and have already watched. And so I'm doing a full deep dive. Like, I think it's going to be July 8th.
Do you like the docuseries?
I talk about Papa Roger. I talk about all of it.
Was the docuseries well done?
I don't think I'm allowed to say.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say it is. But it is wild because his internet search history was wild. Like the porn searches, the photographs of the women in bikinis around that campus. I've never seen this amount of evidence where I'm like, wow. And we're like 3 years into this thing. And that's where I'm like, is the legal system just completely failing us? What is happening that it is taking this long when you have, to me, an overwhelming amount of evidence? And that's when you realize the wheels of justice move very slowly. Lawyers do their work, and at the end of the day, the defense is trying to keep him from the death penalty, even though that is up on the table, correct?
Yep. And I'm almost positive that it could be, if he gets found guilty and gets sentenced to death, I think it can be by firing squad. I'm almost positive. Which is really intense. We don't see that very often.
Yeah, no, we don't. And it's weird in this. Yeah, this one really stuck with me because I just watched that Gilgo Beach docuseries on Peacock, and that's a fascinating one just from the gentleman Rex Harriman's family. The wife speaks out, and it's like you want to talk about Stockholm syndrome or something. Yep. This lady refuses to believe, even though there's overwhelming evidence. She's like, well, they're gonna have to prove it to me. I'm like, they're showing you proof that this man did these things, and I know you know him as a certain type of person, but you have to accept the human condition is so fractured depending on who you're dealing with and what you're masking.
What I find so grotesque about that case, because I have covered that at length, is that his Google searches and I'm going to just censor what I say because I don't know what's going to get flagged or not. His adult content searches were so graphic in nature and so closely aligned to what his daughter visually looks like that it is so unsettling to think about. And I got to just say, too, I was looking at photos from the new doc of his wife when she's speaking out, and the daughter, of course, says she believes he did it. She looks a lot like her husband in the face. If you look at just their faces side by side, they look so similar.
And by the way, I was like, it would have given me away if this was this dude's house. The house seems like in disrepair. It seems like a Nightmare on Elm Street type of house to begin with. And it was like everything seemed fine. I was like, look around at your house. Nothing is fine if this is how you guys kept everything. Sorry to go off on this. I want to get you out of here, but I do want to ask really quickly thoughts on the Valley, because if we're talking crime, I think the most crime is happening on the Valley right now.
Gosh.
The dark. Speak to the darkness of the Valley, Annie.
I think everything with Jax is incredibly dark, and I think that there's such an illustration, in my opinion, of emotional abuse and manipulation, all the way down to covering the cameras, uncovering the cameras, and not paying the mortgage. That's the financial abuse aspect of it. And I think we all knew Jax is kind of this like a hothead, unpredictable, cheating dirtbag in the years he was on Vanderpump. Now it's become like something way more diabolical, and it is so unhinged. And I really truly hope that he is a changed person after rehab. Who's to say? I don't know, but there is such a level of darkness there. I think there's also a level of darkness with Jesse. Not only the comments where he was accusing Michelle of being, an escort and all this, but now in the latest episode when her mother is dying and he's refusing to allow his daughter, her granddaughter, to go spend time with her. There's just
that's what
assholes,
when Jesse does those scenes with Jax, I'm like, pay attention, dude. This is the Ghost of Christmas Future. That could be if you do not change your ways. Like I always say, Jesse is Jax with a PhD. It's like he's just, he knows how to communicate more effectively, but still as sinister, if not more. We just haven't spent enough seasons with this man yet. Now, the other thing I think about when I watch The Valley, and from your perspective, with the covering up of the cameras and the saying, like, I'm watching you, I know what you're wearing, even in a mental health facility, which he has excuses for all of those things. But like, I hate to make this leap, but do you notice similar patterns to these in the cases you cover, like stalker behavior
all the time? All the time. There's no excuse that you can make. I don't care if you're married. I don't care if your name is on title. To be surveilling in secret anyone, and then using that to taunt them and to say, you know what you're wearing, I know what you're wearing, I know when you're coming in and out. All of these are forms of abuse, emotional, financial, mental, all different things, all the way down to the physical. You could argue when he starts throwing the furniture, of course. And so it's very dangerous. And not to say, okay, yeah, I cover a lot of cases where there's killers. I'm not saying Jax is going to be a killer.
Yeah.
Not at all. But like, you do see this pattern of just entitlement and behavior in these men who, I can't diagnose him, but I would say is a narcissist. And that becomes very dangerous in relationships because you don't know what is going to set them off and you don't know what makes them tick. And so I think by filing for divorce, Brittany did the best thing that she could have done.
Yeah, breaking that pattern for herself because he wasn't going to break. He was going to keep going to that well again and again and again. And so I'm glad she made that really tough decision, which I hope people give her grace that actually is a tough decision. But I watch these things now like I watch court cases where I'm like documenting what he says and I'm like, you're saying different things on like the same story on different outlets. And my thing is I argue with myself of, do you let somebody go like Jax Taylor? And my thing, used to be like, well, no, this is what happens and we've seen him, he's okay. But then at the beginning of the season, he talked about going into a blind rage where he just saw red and he was sober at the time. And I'm like, how I can't assure that this man is going to not go into another blind rage. And by the way, a sober blind rage. And I mean, what if something happens? And then I get even scared, like, what if they let him go from the show and then he blames Brittany for that and even freaks out even more?
Absolutely. And it's a cycle, right? We've seen it all the way back to the early Vanderpump days where he's ripping his shirt off in the parking lot in Vegas or whatever. And then he comes back with his tail between his legs. I'm sorry, I have anger issues. I'm getting help. I have sobriety issues. I have this anger management. It's like, it's always the same cycle. He offends, he does his thing, then he tries to repent and make an excuse and say he's getting help, but then he goes right back into the cycle again. And unless this is the final time where he is actually truly breaking out of that and going to be different, I think we're going to probably see the cycle repeat itself.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like, that's why it's a different experience. And I think we've watched reality TV for so long that it's like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And I don't know how exactly people, how do you handle this behind the scenes? Because also, if Jax was out of there, there's still plenty of darkness on the Valley. There's still plenty of things to talk about. Like, nobody's perfect on the Valley. There's nobody aspirational on there, I believe. Like, I can't, there's people I like, but nobody is like, oh, I'd love to be that person at all. And I think that's why it's different than other reality shows.
I agree with you. I think too, and I know we're not going to talk too much of Love Island, but like, can we just talk about the darkness of Huta?
Well, Annie, this is so great because I'm about to talk to Bergie, who was on Love Island and The Traitors.
Love Bergie, Bergalicious.
We talk every week about Love Island, and that's the thing is that Huta is exhibiting behavior that I think we have seen in men and women, where it's really toxic. And not that Jeremiah isn't toxic, but the way she comes at it and then also tries to elicit sympathy. But then it's interesting. You say something about it and then you get feedback of like, how dare you bully her? Like, are we allowed to actually comment on what we see? What is your take on this?
I agree. I don't think it's bullying. I think it's like and I get it. The edits could be different. We're only seeing one perspective, but there is nothing that man could do that would be right in her book. She has a problem with everything. She's nitpicking.
That pancake thing. Wow.
Oh, the pancake thing. Then when she's like, eat all your food on your plate. And I'm like, what is fucking happening right now? And like, she just goes in. And then I thought it was so crazy when America voted and split them up. And she says, America must see something that I don't. And they're trying to protect me. And what are you doing? I'm like, no. This backfired on us. We wanted you away. Like, you're the toxic one. And then for her to like be spying and sitting in on all these conversations to like overhear what he's saying and then take that information and twist it and regurgitate it in a totally different way to the girls being like, here's what he's saying when that's not at all what he said. I'm like, I get that being on lockdown with no TVs, no phones, no nothing, it does something. And that's why they have experts there on site all the time to help 100%. You get through this. But it's like, this is becoming very, very toxic. And if that is not how she normally is in relationships, I think she needs to get the hell out of that villa and take care of herself.
I was shocked that they voted to keep her in. I was like, I know you're friends with her, but you got to cut because we got to focus on other stories at this point. And I feel like her story. I don't feel she's going to find love at this point. And I think
they're going to find each other again. I think they're going to gravitate back together.
See, that's what scares me because we saw the preview that the new bombshell makes out with Iris, who was paired up with Jeremiah. And there is something about the show. Once you get into the second week of Love Island USA, it's like a virus, like it takes hold, and you just
literally the cold sores. Can we talk about it?
Oh my
It's
God!
a literal virus.
It went from Nick's like face down to his lip, and then I'm seeing it like Austin has a lot of face things happening with.
Well,
like,
I saw it on Taylor at one point too during the challenge, and I'm like, that was the one where they were all making out with each other with the log, and I'm all, stop it, stop kissing each other. Like,
if if I see Megan Thee Stallion with a cold sore next week, I'm going to be very, very upset. But they're so funny. It's like they do that show so well on such a quick turnaround timetable that you really, just from a technical aspect, I get so impressed by it. I'm like, wow, they put all like the overpowering music and the way they put this together and the way they keep all of the Islanders engaged in this social experiment. But also what scares me is that I think the other thing you hear of like, they don't know what, like they have no idea what we're saying and it's going to be crazy when they get out. And it's like, yeah, I talked to Islanders last time when they got out. It is crazy, but they do have mental health professionals that do aftercare as well. But I also want to make the argument is at this point, I say this with Housewives as well. You are ignorant if you do not look into what you are signing up for. You are not just signing up for more Instagram followers. You always have to look at what you're signing up for and then also realize people are going to look at your digital footprint of what you posted
all
in the past.
All the time. You got to be prepared to go through the storm 1000%. I don't know if you've ever talked to producers, but a friend of mine from when I lived in New York, she's produced Love Island where she's been in Fiji in the past. I should connect you with her to see if you want to have her on.
I would, yes.
She has done that. And she's also, I think, done Housewives in the past too. So I should definitely connect you with her.
As I get further into this, that's what really fascinates me is how you put this stuff together just from even a technical standpoint. And then also, I think I try to argue with people is that these producers, as much as they're trying to do their job and create drama, they also weirdly, nobody believes me, they do care about these people. They even care about who we consider are bad. Like I remember they cared about Sandoval during Scandoval. They realized that this was a very different, unique situation. So it's not as easy as us going, I hate this person, get them out of there. They actually do care about so it's weird, and I think we live in such times right now where we just want to be angry, and that explodes all over anything that we watch or view.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I remember for the first time ever realizing that there is a true like producer to cast member relationship is Teen Mom back in the day, where you actually get a glimpse of that and you see the dynamic where they're there for all these hard moments and they become like a person to you. And it's like that still is happening behind with all these other reality shows. We just don't see it from that perspective the way they filmed it.
I love Teen Mom when they did that, like, because they really were the originator of breaking the fourth wall, and I think it actually helped the show. So I really care. I think we're all adults where we know how these things are sort of put together, where we're like, when somebody says bravo, bravo, effing bravo, it's not like, oh my God, they're filming this? Like, I know what I'm watching, so I appreciate when they show us the actual reality of their reality. Elise, you are so damn good. I am so happy that you came on today. I know you are insanely busy. And also, I'm so happy that you're working with Jessica. You mentioned that at the beginning, but I just want to give her a shout out because I know the Give Them Lala stuff, a lot of people still ask where she went. Well, she's with you. She landed on her feet very well.
She's with me.
I love that she went from the Vanderpump universe to True Crime universe. And True Crime universe might actually be better for her. She might actually be, this is more relaxing.
She's very, very good. She's so talented. She even moved down here to Orange County from LA. She's great.
Well, now you got to keep her. You can never let her go.
Oh, I'm never letting her go. Are you out of your mind? Never.
Okay, so where do we go to support? Are all these dates sold out already?
I actually will get the updated ticket count later today, but some of them already are sold out. But you can go to AnnieElise.com and then hit the tour tab, and it'll show you all the dates there. We start next month for East Coast. So in less than a month, we'll be doing Toronto, Canada, New York, Boston, DC, and Philly.
Well, my God, you are such an inspiration, and thank you so much for spending all this time with us today. And if you ever need me for any of these things, I'll go to these things and be a stuttering John for you, where I'm like, I'll ask like weird questions and try to be respectful.
Down. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it. I'm down.
I'm going to put all of her information in the show notes, you guys, and on the Instagram post. So go support if you haven't. I know all of you guys probably know her already, but if not, I'm telling you, this and her, they're your new obsession, okay? I'll talk to you next time, Annie.
Bye. Thanks for having me.